Hello everyone, it's Andy from Tales from the Hart. I'm here in an Iron Age roundhouse. I love roundhouses. I learnt to tell stories in roundhouses, and they are still to this day my favourite environments to tell stories in. And I'm going to tell you one of my favourite stories that actually takes place in a roundhouse largely. It's a story from Ireland about a man named Finn MacCool. Now, Finn MacCool was a great warrior, the leader of the Fianna tribe, the most ferocious warriors of Ireland. And Finn was a great man, he was a great warrior, he was a great leader. But he could be quite arrogant. He knew how great he was. And this is a story about that arrogance. And I hope you enjoy it. Once upon a time, Finn MacCool was walking back from battle. He'd won, of course, he had got great fame, gold and jewels and slaves and all the things he usually took from a battle. And he was feeling really good about himself. And so he decided to walk home the long way, away from his friends who he could bid farewell to, and his fellow warriors. And he walked the long way along the cliffs of Northern Ireland. And as he was walking along those cliffs, he wanted that time just to think to himself, reflect about the day's events, reflect how wonderful he was. He was that kind of guy. And as he walked along, he started thinking, I am fantastic, aren't I? I'm the best. There's never been a warrior as great as me, or a giant as great as me, for he was a giant of a man. And as he reached the highest cliff that overlooked the Irish Sea, he decided to shout about how good he felt about himself. Shout it to the heavens. I'm the greatest warrior in the world. I'm the greatest giant in the world. He bellowed to the sky and the sea. And that bellow, so great was his voice, echoed across the waves to a distant, mist-shrouded land called Scotland. And in Scotland, near the coast, there was a cave. And in that cave, another giant lived. Fingal, his name was. And he did not like the sound of this one bit. For you see, giants, they're very protective of their egos, very protective of their good names, their ferocious names. And they get very territorial over these things. And so he crawled from his cave, stretched out to his full height, and he was twice the size of Finn MacCool, 3 times stronger than Finn MacCool, 4 times uglier and smellier than Finn MacCool. And he decided this would not stand, and so he would call a challenge back. Oh, no, you're not! I am! He bellowed back towards Ireland. The answer stunned Finn MacCool, who did not expect to hear a reply, let alone from another giant, but he had a reputation to uphold too, and so he shouted back, Oh, no, you're not! I am! And of course Fingal shouted back, Oh, no, you're not! I am! And this went backwards and forwards for quite some time. Eventually, Finn had had enough. If you're so great, if you're so strong, if you're so tough, come across and prove it. Ha ha ha! Laughter echoed across the waves after his boast. There is no boat big enough that can carry me, Fingal, the great Scottish giant, across the waves. Finn was not going to let that be an answer. Not an excuse either. And so he began ripping up great big chunks of earth and rock from the very cliffs themselves and tossing them into the sea with great big splashes all the way to Scotland to form a stepping stone bridge, a causeway. And when he was done, he was feeling quite tired. There was sweat on his brow, his back was aching, his arms were sore, but he was going to show this Scottish giant what for. He was going to show him who he was messing with. He was going to poke him in the eye. He was going to kick him in the bum. He was going to, call his dog rude names. He was going to do something. And that's when he heard it. Quiet at first. Footsteps. Getting closer. He sounds quite big, thought Finn. But I'll take him. I can do him. And they got louder and closer, and Finn began to feel an unfamiliar feeling that he had not felt gnawing at the pit of his stomach for a long time. Fear. It does sound very big, and I have got to be back for dinner, and I did fight a battle earlier, and oh, is he running? And he did the only thing a warrior could do. He did the only thing a man could do. He ran home to his wife. Back in his great round house in his village, Una, his wife, was looking after things. Una was a famous wise woman across the land. People would come to see her for her wisdom and her answers, ranging from serfs and paupers to princes, princesses and kings. And she had an answer for most things. And she had a keen eye. And so it was of no surprise to her when Finn came running back in through the door, panting and out of breath. "Hello, dear." "What have you done?" She knew that look. "Well," he said, I fought a battle, and won, of course, and got lots of jewels and gold, and then I picked a fight with a Scottish giant who's massive and is coming to beat me up." "Excuse me, what was that?" And so he told her the whole sorry tale. "Right," she said. "So this Fingal's coming to beat you up? Yes? He's bigger than you? Yes? And you want my help? Yes?" "Right," she said. "If I help you, you've got to do everything I tell you to. Deal?" Of course he agreed. "Right," she said. "Finn, first of all, take off your tunic." "Excuse me?" "Take off your tunic," she explained. "Okay." So he peeled off his smelly, sweaty, stinking tunic. Ugh. "What now?" "Right," she said. "Take off your trousers." "Sorry?" It's getting a bit weird. So she repeated, "Take off your trousers." "Okay." So he peeled off his trousers that were also equally smelly and sweaty and stinking and horrible. And there he stood quite naked. "Right," she said, and she got to work. First of all, she took a bedsheet and she wrapped it around his waist and tucked it between his legs and put it in place with a pin each side. "There you go. It's not quite ready yet. An apron." And so she went to get an apron, not just any apron, a pink frilly apron. Now this apron she'd had for a long time. She never used it. She didn't like it, but it finally had a use. And she tied this apron around his head with a little bow underneath. "Right, perfect," she said. So there was Finn MacCool, the greatest warrior in the land, chief of battle, looking like a baby in his swaddling cloth and his bonnet. Not just any baby, not a cute cuddly baby. He looked like a giant, ugly, smelly, ginger-bearded baby, but a baby nonetheless. "Right," she said, "Finn, get in the wood basket. Empty it out first. Get in the wood basket. Cover yourself up with that rug over there. Suck your thumb and do not make a sound until I tell you to." And so off he went, Finn MacCool, chief of the Fianna, slayer of Aelin the Burner, greatest warrior in all of the land, waddling in his nappy and his bonnet. He crawled inside the wood basket, sucked his thumb, and waited. And while he waited, Una set to cooking some bread. All the while, those footsteps became closer and closer and louder until a great knock on the door. "Where's Finn MacCool?" came the demand from outside. "Coming," she said, as she hurried over. Why do giants always have to shout, she thought to herself. She opened the door and looked up. He was quite big. "You must be Fingal," she said. "Finn told me you'd be coming by. Come in. He's not here at the moment. He had to go and slay a dragon. Yes, he's off slaying a dragon, but come in, and make yourself at home, and you can wait for him." And so he bent low to get into the roundhouse, for it was small for him. And he bashed his head on the ceiling as he came in. Ow! When he looked around, it was dark inside and cramped, and there was a baby. He hated babies. And he looked around for somewhere to sit and found a bench and sat down with a great big thud. And there he waited. And as he waited, the smell, the lovely, cloying smell of freshly baked bread invaded his nostrils, and his tummy gave a great big rumble like thunder. "Oh," she said. "Una, are you hungry? You see, I've made some bread, and it's for myself, Finn, and the baby, But Finn's not here at the moment, so would you like his portion? I'm sure he won't mind. You must be hungry. Now, Fingal had not come to eat his enemy's bread. If anything, he'd come to grind up his enemy and eat him. But he was quite hungry after all that travelling and all that boasting. And so he agreed. And so Una cut the bread neatly in 3 places and put some in front of the baby, some in front of her own little space on her own trencher, on her own plate, and some she brought over to Fingal, the Scottish giant. And it smelled delicious, it was soft, it was freshly baked, it had herbs baked into it. He was going to enjoy this. And he saw Una and the baby tucking in, and he broke a tooth. He broke another one. It was rock hard. How could he? But the baby and Una were eating it fine. They were tucking right in. So he crunched and he cracked and he ground. He couldn't be outdone by a baby. And he swallowed it down, broken tooth and all. Ow! Did you enjoy that? Una said. Thank you very much, said Fingal. For you see, it was baked lovingly with flour, with buttermilk, with herbs. But his portion, unseen to him, had a horseshoe tucked inside before he'd got there. And so Una paid him the first lesson for invading their home. And so there sat Fingal miserably, with bleeding gums and broken teeth, as the sun passed high in the sky. I'm sorry he's not back yet, said Una after a little while, letting him stew in his misery for a little bit. I'm sorry he's not back. He must have stopped off to kill some trolls on the way home. He likes doing that. It's a bit of a hobby of his. So, I'll tell you what you might be able to do for me, Fingal, she said. Normally around this time of day, Fingal, the romantic soul that he is, picks up the roundhouse and moves it around to face the west, to face the sunset. I couldn't do it, but maybe you could. You're nearly as big as him. If you're not strong enough, that's fine. Not strong. Fingal had never heard anything so stupid as lifting up an entire great roundhouse and moving it around to face the sunset, but anything Finn could do, surely he could do it. And so he made his way outside and, bashed his head again on the way out, ow! And he went to the ground and he lifted, and he cracked his back, ow! And he hobbled over and he heaved, and he pulled a muscle, ow! But finally, he lifted it up, turned it around to face the west, to face the sunset, popped it down. And now his back was throbbing, his gums were still aching, and he bashed his head again on the way in, ow! And he sat down with a great big thud, Now, Finn had never actually picked up the roundhouse and moved it to face the west, but Una had always fancied a west-facing roundhouse, and now she had one. Just as he had sat down, not a moment's rest to be had, Una kicked the cot, and the baby started to cry. And this was not any cute, cuddly baby cry. This was the cry you'd expect to come from a smelly, ugly, great, ginger-bearded giant of a baby. And so this terrific cry went up, wah! And Fingal went, in turn. What's wrong with it? Is it broken or something? Why is it making that noise? I'm sorry, said Una. He's still teething a little bit, you see. And normally, Finn will rub his finger in some honey and some whiskey and rub it around the baby's gums, and that will soothe him. I don't think he'll let me do it. He might let you do it. You kind of look his dad a bit. If you're not man enough, I understand, but... Now, Fingal hated babies. He especially hated whining, crying babies. He especially hated ugly, smelly, ginger-bearded, whining, crying babies that were the babies of Finn MacCool. However, anything Finn could do, be it eating rock-hard bread, lifting roundhouses, or soothing the cries of a child, he, Fingal, could do better. And so he made his way reluctantly towards the cot, dipping his finger in the honey and the whiskey on the way, and he approached and, it stinks, it's horrible. It's got a beard and everything. It's just, and he didn't know what to do. Coochie coo. and he put the finger into the baby's mouth. And can you guess what the baby did just then? Of course, bit the finger off, clean at the knuckle. Ah! Cried Fingal. If that's Finn MacCool's baby, I'm not sticking around to meet Finn MacCool. And off he ran away, crying his eyes out with great giant stomps all the way away from the roundhouse to the coast. And there, once he was at the coast, he jumped across the first stepping stone and threw it behind him. And then he jumped to the next one and threw the last one behind him. And again, all the way to the middle. And when he reached the middle, he realised he didn't want Finn MacCool recreating this bridge, and so he started throwing them forward. And he escaped. And to this day, those two giants have never met in battle. And to this day, if you go to the coast of Northern Ireland, you will see those stones stacked up at a place called the Giant's Causeway. And if you followed a straight line across to Scotland, you will find a similar rock pattern of stacked stones like that where Fingal had thrown them forward, right near a place called Fingal's Cave. Now, if you've not been to either or both of those places, you can Google them, and you will see they're real, therefore proving that all of my stories are real. But there's a lesson to be had. A lot of these stories have lessons and have morals to them. Now, I think the clear moral from that one, of course, is Finn was boasting a bit and it got him in trouble. So it's a moral against boasting. He bit off more than he can chew, quite literally, at the end, as did Fingal with his bread. There are other morals as well, though, I'm sure. What's that other one? Don't put your finger in a ginger-bearded baby's mouth. That's an important one. Yes. Amy's not here at the moment. She usually prods me and says this. So on behalf of Amy, I will say, normally behind every great man in history like that, every great hero in folklore, there is a great woman. I usually tell that story with Amy, and so it's a little bit odd me not telling it with her, but I hope you've enjoyed it nonetheless. Thank you very much for joining me. We'll be putting up some more of these later. Stay safe, and remember to wash your hands. Until next time.